Yes, yes. Like the voice. Like, okay, how's this? Oh yeah, much better. All right. So, well, I'm William Douglas, the author of the new second edition, The Gospel of Science, mind-blowing new science on ancient truths to heal our stress, lives, and planet. And uh, when when I first started floating this book, or the content in the book, because science in it is just so mind-boggling. Well, having studied mind-body practices for years, it all makes perfect sense. I mean, it's just like pieces falling into a puzzle. I actually explain how all this occurred. It's really extraordinary, amazing experiences about how the book came into being. Involving like creating out of the vision of a meditation, creating a mass global mind body event that has been recognized by government bodies all over the planet, and uh, and the Princeton University Global Consciousness Project actually discovered that it had actually changed global consciousness, not just the people doing Tai Chi and Qigong for that 24-hour period, but it changed it for the whole planet. And so, yeah, so, but when I first came out, with these concepts, it was just like, man, I was getting hit from so many angles uh, with people that they just didn't want to entertain this stuff. And then I discovered that there was like kind of a media thing behind it. These so-called debunkers, and they uh, like Wikipedia. Uh, they have this really narrow mechanistic view um, of creation and our lives and everything. And I just wasn't expecting that kind of resistance. But then I started to realize the media kind of push people that way. And I looked into the articles, and the so-called debunkers, they weren't really very factual. A lot of it was kind of character assassination. Like if you go on Wikipedia, the first thing they say is about somebody who's investigating consciousness affecting physical reality, and they'll say he's a pseudoscientist. That's that's how they'll start off the article on that particular scientist, no matter how renowned that scientist is. And there's been some pretty renowned scientists, Nobel Prize winners, just because they study consciousness, like their research money starts to dry up. And I don't know why this is, and I don't really care. But I don't. Uh, but I don't back down because the science is there. If you've read the book, the science is there, and so these things happen. It's like I just give people the science, make their own decision. But I don't back down from talking about it because it's really important that we understand our consciousness and everything. But I don't want to be snippy or mean with anybody because we're all just creatures on this planet, or really spiritual or energetic beings that are having a physical experience. We're all going through the same things, and I know because I felt it during an extraordinary consciousness experience that I had, that I describe in the book. And but I so I don't try to be mean. I just try to give information. I mean, I've been an organizer and an activist my whole life, and in the beginning when I started doing this stuff, I could get very mean with people, and I really regret that. I worked in Salvadoran and Guatemalan refugee camps in the '80s, and when I came back, I was just a kid, in my 20s, and I just wasn't prepared for how reactive people would be, because I would tell them, our government, the U.S. is on the wrong side. We were hurting a lot of innocent Salvadoran, Guatemalan peasants. A bloodbath. I wanted to tell, the refugees wanted me to come home and tell Americans what was going on so that, maybe we'd force our government to stop that from happening. So, what could I do? But, uh, but yeah, when people would, they would, call you un-American or, you just never, you never know when something triggers somebody, you don't know where it's coming from. And, uh, and so it took me a long time to navigate that. And, and I would get kind of snarly and I'd get snarly back. And, so yeah, I just don't want to do that anymore because, the experiences that I've had and the science that I've discovered that's in the book, I just know, without a doubt that we're all going through the same journey. And so, I don't want to make anything any harder for anybody. You know, I don't even like to kill bugs. I mean, if my cupboard was full of ants, I would probably get the ant spray, and a bad day for the ants. But but I mean, if I don't have to, if there's just like a wasp in my house or something, I'll just catch it, with a glass and a postcard or something, and then just let it out. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a super hectic life. Maybe if I was, having to work 60 hours a week, I'd just grab the fly swatter and swat the wasp. But if I have the time, I just, I don't want to add any more suffering, to anything anyway. And I have in the past. I mean, we all have. We're going through this human journey, but we're much bigger than potential. Potential for us and children and our grandchildren. It's just beyond imagination. We could be saving trillions of dollars year after year, uh, just by getting mind body practices, science based mind body practices, as a core part of public education worldwide. But the thing that I find so exciting that students, teachers be, I mean, they'd be remiss to not have their students practicing techniques science has discovered can increase their IQ, improve their test scores, um, uh, create more creative students, more inquisitive students. The gamma brainwave effects of mind body practices, creating multi-dimensional thinkers in students. So yeah, it'd be crazy for a teacher, and then also it can treat Tai Chi, for example, and I'm sure meditation can treat ADD and attention deficit disorder, and probably yoga too. I mean, the big five: meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, um, mindfulness, Qigong. The big five. They have so much science behind them, and so the absenteeism of students would be cut dramatically. I mean, it would just be a teacher's dream, really, to have intelligent, inquisitive students who aren't bouncing off the walls. And it's just so possible. I mean, just that teachers around the planet need to know that incorporating mind body education can do such a thing. And then also, providing them resources, to kind of try to create mind body courses, that are efficacious. And so here in the US, I worked on a National Council on Aging project, and Dr. Roger Yonka helped put it together. And um, what they did was they brought in, I think about a dozen Tai Chi and Qigong, experts from around the country. I think one of them was from Canada. And anyway, our job was to create an efficacy guide for people who work with senior citizens, so that if they created a Tai Chi program at their facility, that that it would be an effective program. So we all sat around and brainstormed and made lists of what was important things include in a Tai Chi course, and and then it was distributed to aging professionals all over the country. So there's precedence for this, but what we want, what we're looking for, is a United Nations resolution, and we're going to reach out to every country. We would hope maybe India might, uh, likely be a country that would introduce this, because they're responsible for introducing the United Nations resolution for an international day of yoga, and so there's a precedent there for that. So if we can maybe talk to the Indian government, yeah. So the United Nations resolution that we're putting forth, it would educate educators, get the United Nations to use the resources that they have and the contacts they have with educators all over the planet. And, teachers all over the planet, they refer to the United Nations when something about education comes out. And so, it would educate educators all over the planet that the science on mind body practice for students is just too massive and too exciting for it not to be part of public education. And then the other thing, of course, is it would boost global immunity. The research. I know there's a Tai Chi study that showed that uh, the helper T cell count in a Tai Chi group was 50% higher than a control group. So I mean, if there was a drug that could boost your T cell count by 50%, you'd be seeing it on TV all the time. So we can get these things into public schools. We can, and I'm, all the big five, I'm sure, boost immunity because they all have that calming effect. They bring the brain waves into that alpha state, alpha theta, and then and everything just starts to work better. It's kind of like rebooting your computer. And these are thousands-year-old time-tested tools. But what's different today is that the science has shown, that it's literally insane not to have this become part of public education. But again, this has been a long way around to where I was when I started talking about what really excites me about this. And what really excites me is the the another effect, or a side effect, or however you want to look at it, of making really much smarter, creative students, and healthier, is that these mind body practices increase the empathy and compassion parts of the brain. They actually increase the size of the empathy and compassion parts of the brain, and they physically shrink the size of the fear and stress part of the brain. And I just found that so electrifying that we could have like a whole generation of kinder students. I mean, most all of us have been bullied in school, and a lot of us have been bullies in school. I have. I bullied a kid. I still regret it. That was over 50 years ago, 55 years ago, and it still haunts me. And he probably wasn't the only one that I bullied. I mean, I think bullying is a form of stress management, and I think if we're having a tough time at home, we'll bring it to school with us. Unless there's some kind of intervention like mind body practice, where the kid can sit down and go through yoga or meditation or Tai Chi or Qigong or mindfulness, for an hour, not 1 hour every day. Just like it used to be physical education, but this is so much more effective on so many levels. And with yoga and Tai Chi, you get a really effective physical education. Tai Chi gives you a really good cardio benefit. So, so that's all you need. I mean, why not use these highly sophisticated, mind body sciences for a PE course instead of just touch your toes, stretch your back? I mean, you do all that in Tai Chi and Qigong anyway, and yoga. So, yeah, a whole generation of kids with larger empathy and compassion parts of the brain. Imagine. I mean, that's the world I want my grandkids to grow up in, and I want them to practice it too, and they do. Well, at least two of them do. One of them's only 3 years old, but he did. I noticed, like I mentioned in the book, beginning of the book. Yeah, he did meditate a lot when he was still in diapers. He'd just space out, and his sister, my granddaughter, she would say he's dreaming with his eyes open. That's what they called it. So, it's all natural. We can all do it. It's just that we forget to do it. And then with the digital age, everybody's like plugged in. And I've had websites. I organize, and so I've had websites and been plugged into all that stuff. Uh, and it's done wonders. I mean, we've changed the world literally. But on the other hand, I've done it enough to know that it's really not that good for us, not to be plugged in all the time. And so many people are just plugged in all the time. The more I'm plugged in, the less happy I am. I got to get out. I got to get to connect with nature. Do some yoga or tai chi, or meditate, or just play. Go to the art museum, something. Get away from this stuff. And but but again, the mind body stuff, the science is in. So if we got it, if we made a 1 hour a day curriculum, the United Nations could spread through a resolution to educators all around the world. We could very quickly start having mind body courses, and it wouldn't be required. No country would have to do it, or no school would have to do it, but they would know the science on it. They would have the science, and I think any rational educator who looks at science, they'd be going, yeah, yeah, we need to do that right now. We need to get these kids more calm, more focused, more intelligent, less sick, less ADD, ADHD. So yeah, so it's not like it's going to be a hard sell with educators. You just got to get the information to them, and then develop curriculum ideas. And again, it wouldn't be mandatory. Nobody'd have to do it, no country or school or anything, but they would want. Most of them would want to. And but then you'd have something to hand them. UN website or something that would kind of give them an idea. We could bring experts in, just like the National Council on Aging did, Dr. Roger Young, and I think it was the University of Champaign that are also involved in that. But anyway, we could bring experts in from all over the world. Chinese, Tai Chi, Qigong experts, and but Tai Chi and Qigong experts from from all over the world, because everybody this has been here for 40 years, so there's some high level experts in every country. And then like yoga, bring in yoga experts from around the world, and of course India. And so, and then we could create these high level. The other thing too is that there's this brainwave sensor that you can get relatively cheaply. There's probably different ones, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm doing an ad for them. But the one of my students gave me the Muse. So if you look up Muse brain scan, and it can sense your brain waves. And so when you go into meditation, it gives you a little meditation primer, and then it takes you into these short meditations. And you can actually see when your brain waves are going into alpha state, into that meditative state, and also when they go back into the beta state, because all the science is shown that's where the magic happens. You go to that 8 hertz, right around 8 hertz, which interestingly is the vibratory rate of the planet Earth. So it's really, how deep these things are. We're only beginning to scratch the surface. For example, when you do the Om sound, Om, that's 432 hertz. Well, guess what else is 432 hertz? The background frequency of the universe. So when we go into a meditative state, we go into coherence with the vibratory rate of the planet Earth. And when we Om while we're meditating, we go into the vibratory rate of the entire universe. So, the science that we found on mind body stuff, it's education. It's just so overwhelmingly positive and profound and beautiful, that there's no way. How can any educator say no? We don't want to do that. So we just got to use the UN, get it through. The UN will do things like this. Like I said, the International Day of Yoga was the United Nations resolution, and again, when we worked with the National Council on Aging, they brought in experts. We created a curriculum, and these curriculum ideas could be spread all over the planet. But also, local mind body teachers in each community. And because I organize World Tai Chi Day, um, I know that there's Tai Chi and Qigong teachers in virtually every locale in the world, every country. When we started organizing World Tai Chi Day, we'd get photos emailed to us from different events that were being. We uh, uh, had worldtaichiday.org where we communicated everybody around the world that was involved. Not everybody, lots of events we never know. But anyway, we'd get these photos of like Bolivian farmers, with those round Bolivian hats on a mountainside, and Qigong on World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. And so we realized this stuff is everywhere. And so it's not a heavy lift. It's not a heavy lift. It's not like we have to go, find great masters and fly them to every location. It's already there. It's been set up for 40 years. And I think, I think the Beatles really kicked this whole thing off when they went to India and they studied with the Maharishi. I was watching an interview with George Harrison, and he said, we were just four British lads, working class British lads, and suddenly we had more money than anyone could dream of. Get any physical pleasure, whatever. And he said we weren't happy, didn't make us happy, so we were seekers. So they ended up going to India with, and the Beatles were a phenomenon like nothing else. The whole world was in love with them. I don't mean everybody, but kids all over the world. So they had this magical way of garnering eyeballs. And John Lennon, and they used it to introduce people to the Maharishi in meditation. That really united. But John Lennon, he performed, well, actually, the Beatles, they performed before a world studio audience. It was the biggest TV audience in the history of humanity. I think it was 600 million people around the world going to be watching. And they just come out with a new album. So they just come out with a new album. And what you do when you get a chance to go in front of millions of people, manager will tell you that you play a song off the new album and promote that album. But the Beatles didn't do that. Instead, they played one of their old songs. So they had this opportunity in front of 600 million people to promote themselves, make God knows how much money. But instead, they played "All You Need Is Love." You need is love. That's what the 600 or so pages of science in the gospel, in the new second edition of the gospel. That's what all that science says. From a DNA level through a macroeconomic level, all levels of society, what all the ancient prophets were extolling. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm just talking about a social vision that they all shared. Muhammad, Buddha, this, all of them, all the major religions, the indigenous religions, well, Native American, so forth. And that was all. It was compassion. It was compassion. Compassion is the answer to everything. And Darwin, he was. Everybody thinks it was survival of the fittest, but it was really, his second book. He only referred to that concept of survival of the fittest a couple of times. In his second book, he mentioned love over and over and over and over again, connection, and that's what brought humanity to the place stature on the planet that we're on today. Our love, our compassion, caring for one another, being a group instead of just individuals. And yeah, so the Beatles played all You Need Is Love. All this science, all this science validates that lyric. kind of eerie. Something. But the Beatles, they weren't afraid. They weren't afraid to extol love and tenderness and things like that because the world loved them. And so it was our love for the Beatles. It was our love for the Beatles that emboldened them, to be true, true to who they were, and to be open and not have to hide themselves, like most stars do. You have to hide yourself. Yeah. So, so this book, and again the culminating premise of the book. I think you'll enjoy the book. I think you'll find it very entertaining and exciting. Just because it shows, how just a simple, you know, uh, poor Kansas boy, like myself, uh, was able to create a worldwide event recognized by governments all over the planet, and then that actually changed global consciousness. But it's not written like, oh, look at this, what I did. The way that it's written is to keep reminding everybody that we all have this tremendous potential, and I'm not talking about literally changing the a global effect. Uh, that's no more important than when we just treat somebody across the counter at a convenience store, with compassion. It's like when you have that moment where you do something kind, and you can see that it changes something. You can see in their eyes, or you can feel the energy, or however. And so we have this potential. George Harrison's song, "Look at You All." What was it? It was "See the love there that's sleeping. All my guitar is weeping." So, so when we look at this science, see how easy it'd be to get this into public schools, and immediately, I mean, very quickly, the public schools that have done this, they've seen results. They've seen bullying go down. They've seen test scores go up. They've seen kids getting healthier, and so like with my three grandchildren, they're getting ready to go into public school. One of them just started kindergarten. And, my God, I would love to have them walking the hallways with kids who have larger empathy and compassion parts of the brain. Now, one thing I have to point out is that actually the world is much kinder than ever in the past, or at least in terms of non violence. The planet Earth is vastly less violent than at any time in human history. Steven Pinker's book is great. Better Angels of Our Nature for understanding that data. But violent crime rates in the United States, they're at 40-year lows right now. You'd never know that from watching the media. They make you think, God, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. My neighbor's going to kill me. It keeps us all divided. And we're all connected. That's what science shows. We're all one global noosphere. Our consciousness is not stuck within this bone. That's for sure, because that bone's only energy. That's all it is. That's science. I used to think that was just Eastern mysticism. It's not. Eastern philosophy and Eastern science, and it's also modern Western science. There is nothing solid. There's cosmic particles just pouring right through our bodies right now. They're detectable, but too small to see. So they just go right through our skull, right through our brain, right through, but right down into the earth. There's probably millions of them falling through us right now. Uh, So we're all one connected energetic node. When I had my first extraordinary consciousness experience, I wrote this poem. It was about uh, it was about people like Giordano Bruno, the guy who realized that he had a vision and realized that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. I think he was eventually burned at the stake, but but yeah, but anyway, he went around and he told everybody, and so these kind of great thinkers that sorry, had to check one of the controls here.